To reach Lyon in Nicaragua, I took a direct minibus from Peñablanca in Honduras. I stayed in the Via Via hostel, a very pleasant place, lots of trees. There's me waiting for breakfast to be served. Then it's out walking the streets to see what's around, worth photographing. This is a gigantona, a huge papier-mâché figure, paraded around the streets in November and December by groups of young boys. As you can see from the clothing, it depicts a colonial era woman. During the revolution of the 1970s, the town streets were the scene of several decisive battles between the communist Sandinistas and dictator Somoza's forces. Here's a Sandinista with his foot on Somoza's head. Here the street battles are depicted, with civilians being mown down by Somoza's forces. Unfortunately, these buildings are condemned, and soon this artwork will be lost forever. Now let's just take a walk around town and look at some of the more attractive old buildings and their colourful paintwork. At dusk I filmed the massive cathedral, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And here we see the recently repainted Church El Calvario. Next day, I took the bus for the 45-minute trip down to the Pacific coast. There wasn't much there, just a cafe and a few other buildings, people in hammocks and a blue sea. For me, the most interesting thing was the fishermen mending their nets. After 4 days in Lyon, I took a tourist minibus direct to Granada. This avoided the need to change conventional buses in Managua, the capital. For my 8 days in Granada, I was the sole guest in Paddy O'Shea's backpacker hostel. Nothing wrong with the hostel, there simply weren't any tourists. This was because of the serious civil unrest that had taken place here earlier in the year. Looking at the peaceful scene in the Parque Central, it's difficult to believe that just a few months earlier people had been gunned down here and the lovely old town hall had been burnt to the ground. These horse-drawn carriages are for tourist sightseeing purposes only and are not part of the local transport system. In Granada, the evenings are hot, so most people sit outside their front door in a rocking chair. This couple invited me inside their house. Like Doctor Who's TARDIS, looks much larger on the inside than it does from the outside. Every night, thousands of noisy grackles come to roost in the trees in the Parque Central opposite the cathedral. Most mornings, before it got too hot, I would stroll down to the municipal market to buy mandarins and other fruit. In Granada, if building supplies have been ordered in relatively small quantities, they're delivered by horse and cart. These are waiting to be loaded. The nearby town of Masaya makes an easy day trip by bus. Here we're making our way out through the colourful streets of Granada. The town of Masaya lies beside its namesake lake. This is the Malecón, the promenade above the lake. And this is Volcan Masaya, the Masaya volcano, which I'm going to visit tomorrow. Masaya is unusual in having a system of horse buses plying a circular route and available to anybody. These are not tourist buses. I hopped off near the bus station to catch the bus back to Granada. As in all of Central and South America, there's always plenty of food to buy on your bus journey.
Gaseosa tajada con queso, enchilada, gaseosa, 5 la gaseosa.
5 la gaseosita, 5.
Easing its way out from the bus station, the bus inched past the crowded market stalls. Next day, I took the direct bus from Granada to Managua. This dropped me right outside the entrance to the Volcan Masaya National Park. The road goes right to the top. This is the lip of the volcano, which is still active, more or less.
В 2001-2012 году последний раз
Изругался?
А?
Изругался?
Да.
Despite some relatively recent eruptions, the lava fields are covered in small trees and beautiful flowers. For a nighttime visit, to view the glowing magma deep in the crater, you have to leave the park and then come back in with a special nighttime ticket. This is quite popular, and there must have been 50 to 60 people there on the lip of the volcano.
Oh, he's got, yeah.
While we're waiting on everyone, dude.
So
Oh,
cool.
let them go first. We had a couple shots first.
Every night, just before dusk, groups of half-moon conure parrots swooped down into the crater to roost.
And instead of 10, it's 40. Just look at the tempo for the notes. You said, oh, 1 more hour and no problem.
I'm gonna say I think the times are pretty good. Wow, here we go.
Finally it became dark enough to see the magma glowing. This is a long way down, and this shot's taken with a telephoto lens.
Still magma?
On this shot, watch out for the parrot suddenly zooming up out of the crater. There. And that final view of the lava was it for Nicaragua, because next day I set off by bus for Liberia in Costa Rica.